Greetings and welcome back to Daily Tales, where we bring you the most fascinating and bone-chilling true crime stories from around the world. As always, we've scoured the archives to bring you a tale that will leave you on the edge of your seat, so sit back, relax, and get ready to be transported into the dark and twisted world of true crime. Ted Bundy is one of the most notorious serial killers in American history, known for his charming persona and brutal crimes. Over the course of several years in the 1970s, Bundy killed at least 30 young women in multiple states, leaving a trail of terror and devastation in his wake. But behind Bundy's veneer of normalcy and intelligence lay a dark and twisted mind, driven by a deep-seated need for power and control. His crimes shocked the nation and forever changed the way we view serial killers. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into the life and crimes of Ted Bundy, exploring his early years, his killing spree, and the legacy and impact of his crimes. Join us as we unravel the story of one of the most heinous criminals in American history. Ted Bundy was a man with a charming smile, a magnetic personality, and a secret darkness within. As a child, he was raised in a loving household by his grandparents, who he believed to be his parents, and was told that his mother was his older sister. He excelled in school, was active in his church, and showed promise for a bright future. But as he grew older, a darkness began to emerge within him. He became obsessed with pornography and developed a fascination with violent sexual fantasies. He began to break into homes, stealing items and searching for items to fulfill his desires. As he continued on this path, his behavior escalated. In 1974, he committed his first known crime, breaking into a house in Washington state and brutally attacking 2 young women, killing one and severely injuring the other. This was just the beginning of his killing spree, which would span multiple states and take the lives of dozens of young women. Bundy used his charm and good looks to lure his victims, approaching them with offers of help or pretending to be injured himself. As his victims' families and friends searched for answers and law enforcement struggled to connect the dots, Bundy remained elusive, slipping in and out of cities and states with ease. But despite his clever tactics, Bundy's luck eventually ran out. In 1975, he was caught by police in Utah, leading to a series of trials and eventual sentencing to death for his heinous crimes. As the story of Ted Bundy unfolds, we will see the darkness that lurks beneath the surface of seemingly normal individuals and the devastating impact that violent crimes can have on entire communities. Join us as we delve into the chilling tale of Ted Bundy and explore the legacy of his crimes on society and the criminal justice system. Ted Bundy's first known crime was a brutal attack on 2 young women in Washington state. This horrific event was just the beginning of his reign of terror, as he would go on to abduct and murder dozens of young women in multiple states over the course of several years. Bundy's early crimes were marked by his signature method of approach. He would often pose as an authority figure or someone in need of help, using his charm and charisma to disarm his victims and gain their trust. Once he had them in his grasp, he would overpower them and inflict unimaginable violence upon them. As the death toll rose, Bundy continued to evade capture, moving from city to city and state to state with ease. Despite the efforts of law enforcement, Bundy remained elusive, striking at will and leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. The sense of fear and panic that gripped the communities in which Bundy operated was palpable. Young women were warned not to walk alone at night and police forces were stretched thin as they tried to connect the dots and track down the killer. But despite the challenges, law enforcement continued to pursue Bundy, and eventually, their efforts paid off. In 1975, Bundy was caught in Utah, leading to a string of trials and eventual sentencing to death for his crimes. As we delve deeper into the story of Ted Bundy, We will see the chilling details of his early crimes and the devastating impact they had on the victims and their families. We will explore the methods Bundy used to evade capture and the dogged determination of law enforcement to bring him to justice. Join us as we continue our journey into the dark and disturbing world of Ted Bundy. After moving to Utah, Ted Bundy continued his reign of terror with a series of abductions and murders that shocked the community. Over the course of several months, Bundy kidnapped and killed multiple young women in the area, leaving a trail of horror and devastation in his wake. One of the most notorious incidents occurred at a Utah ski resort, where Bundy kidnapped 2 women from their hotel room and brutally murdered them. The crime scene was marked by a level of brutality and violence that shocked even the most seasoned investigators. Despite the mounting evidence against him, Bundy remained elusive, slipping in and out of the state with ease and continuing his pattern of violence and terror. The sense of fear and panic that gripped the community was palpable. Women were warned not to walk alone at night, and parents kept a close eye on their daughters, fearing that they too could become the next victim of the elusive killer. As law enforcement struggled to piece together the evidence and track down the killer, Bundy continued his pattern of violence, striking at will and leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. But eventually, the relentless efforts of law enforcement paid off. In 1975, Bundy was finally caught in Utah, leading to a string of trials and eventual sentencing to death for his crimes. As we continue to explore the story of Ted Bundy, we will delve deeper into the details of his Utah murders and the impact they had on the community. We will see the bravery and determination of law enforcement as they pursued the killer, and the resilience of the community in the face of unspeakable violence. Join us as we continue our journey into the chilling world of Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy's capture was the result of tireless effort on the part of law enforcement agencies across multiple states. Despite his cunning and ability to evade capture, Bundy was eventually caught in 1975, leading to a string of trials and eventual sentencing to death for his heinous crimes. Bundy's capture was the result of a combination of factors, including the diligent work of investigators, the use of advanced forensic techniques, and a bit of luck. As the investigation into Bundy's crimes continued, law enforcement began to piece together the evidence and develop a profile of the elusive killer. This profile helped investigators to narrow their search and focus on suspects who fit the profile. One of the key breakthroughs in the investigation came when Bundy was pulled over for a traffic violation in Utah. The police officer who pulled him over noticed that Bundy's car matched the description of a vehicle that had been seen near the site of one of the murders. This led to Bundy's arrest and eventual extradition to Colorado to stand trial. Bundy's arrest was a pivotal moment in the case, but it was only the beginning of a long and complex legal process. Bundy would go on to represent himself in court, using his charm and intelligence to manipulate the proceedings and create doubt in the minds of the jurors. Despite his efforts, however, Bundy was ultimately found guilty of multiple murders and sentenced to death. His appeals and attempts to delay his execution were unsuccessful, and he was put to death in Florida in 1989. As we continue to explore the story of Ted Bundy, we will delve deeper into the details of his capture and the legal proceedings that followed. We will see the tireless efforts of law enforcement to bring Bundy to justice, and the resilience of the victims' families in the face of unspeakable tragedy. Join us as we continue our journey into the chilling world of Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy's extradition to Colorado to stand trial for the murder of a young woman there marked a turning point in the case. Bundy would represent himself in court, using his intelligence, charm, and legal knowledge to manipulate the proceedings and create doubt in the minds of the jurors. As the trial began, Bundy's defense team attempted to create a narrative that cast doubt on his guilt. They argued that the evidence against him was circumstantial and that the real killer was still at large. But as the trial progressed, it became clear that the evidence against Bundy was overwhelming. Witness testimony, forensic evidence, and the sheer volume of victims all pointed to his guilt. Despite his efforts to create doubt, Bundy was ultimately found guilty and sentenced to death. However, this was not the end of the legal proceedings. Bundy's defense team continued to appeal the conviction, arguing that he had not received a fair trial. They also raised questions about the use of forensic evidence and the testimony of witnesses. These appeals would drag on for years, delaying Bundy's execution and creating ongoing pain and suffering for the victims' families. But despite their efforts, the convictions against Bundy would ultimately stand, and he would be put to death in Florida in 1989. As we continue to explore the story of Ted Bundy, we will delve deeper into the legal proceedings that followed his capture and the impact they had on the victims' families, and the criminal justice system as a whole. We will see the challenges and complexities of prosecuting a high-profile serial killer and the emotional toll that these cases take on everyone involved. Join us as we continue our journey into the chilling world of Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy's extradition to Florida marked the beginning of a series of trials and legal proceedings that would further reveal the extent of his crimes and their devastating impact on the victims and their families. Bundy's defense team continued to raise questions about the use of forensic evidence and the testimony of witnesses, but these efforts were ultimately unsuccessful. The evidence against Bundy was overwhelming, and his guilt was clear. During the trial, the prosecution presented a case that linked Bundy to the deaths of multiple young women, including the infamous Chi Omega sorority house murders. The trial was marked by emotional testimony from witnesses and family members of the victims, as well as the revelation of chilling details about Bundy's crimes. Despite his efforts to create doubt, Bundy was ultimately found guilty of multiple murders and sentenced to death. But even after the trial, the legal proceedings continued. Bundy's appeals and attempts to delay his execution dragged on for years, causing ongoing pain and suffering for the victims' families. But ultimately, justice prevailed, and Bundy was put to death in Florida in 1989. As we continue to explore the story of Ted Bundy, we will delve deeper into the Florida trials and the legal battles that followed. We will see the bravery and resilience of the victims' families in the face of unspeakable tragedy and the ongoing impact that these crimes have had on society and the criminal justice system as a whole. Join us as we continue our journey into the chilling world of Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy's crimes had a profound impact on society and the criminal justice system, and his legacy continues to be felt to this day. Bundy's case was a watershed moment in the history of true crime, capturing the public's attention and sparking a wave of interest in the genre. It also highlighted the challenges and complexities of investigating and prosecuting serial killers, and helped to push for advances in forensic science and investigative techniques. But perhaps most importantly, Bundy's case served as a wake-up call to society about the dangers of violence against women. The young women Bundy targeted were often vulnerable and alone, and his crimes highlighted the need for greater awareness and prevention efforts to protect women from harm. The legacy of Bundy's crimes can still be felt in the ongoing fascination with true crime and the prevalence of violence against women in our society. But it has also sparked a movement of survivors and advocates who are working to raise awareness and demand change. As we conclude our exploration of the story of Ted Bundy, we are left with a sobering reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly normal individuals. But we are also reminded of the resilience and determination of the human spirit. and the power of justice and hope to overcome even the most heinous of crimes. Join us as we reflect on the legacy and impact of Ted Bundy, and the lessons we can learn from this tragic chapter in our history. The story of Ted Bundy is a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk within seemingly normal individuals. His crimes spanned multiple states and claimed the lives of dozens of young women, leaving a trail of horror and devastation in his wake. But despite his best efforts to evade capture and manipulate the legal system, Bundy was ultimately brought to justice. His case served as a wake-up call to society about the dangers of violence against women and the need for greater awareness and prevention efforts. Today, the legacy of Ted Bundy continues to be felt, both in the ongoing fascination with true crime and in the ongoing efforts of survivors and advocates to raise awareness and demand change. But we are also reminded of the resilience and determination of the human spirit, and the power of justice and hope to overcome even the most heinous of crimes. As we reflect on the story of Ted Bundy, we are left with a sobering reminder of the need for vigilance and awareness in the face of violence and a renewed commitment to creating a safer and more just society for all. As we wrap up our journey through the life and crimes of Ted Bundy, it's clear that his legacy will forever haunt us. His brutal acts of violence shattered the lives of his victims and their families, leaving a lasting impact on our society. But it's important to remember that the story of Ted Bundy is not just a story of a monster. It's also a story of resilience and strength. The survivors of Bundy's attacks, as well as the families of the victims, have shown incredible courage and determination in the face of unimaginable tragedy. By sharing this story, we honor the memory of those who lost their lives at the hands of Bundy, and we stand with those who continue to live with the scars of his actions. We must continue to work towards preventing such heinous crimes in the future and to support the survivors of such violence. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content.